Up to good work.
Unless we're talking to you, Joe.
Talking to all of us, we're all hopefuls, okay?
Hey, gotta have fun with this, you know?
Don't be afraid of me. I've been there.
Okay, we'll be recording.
Different costumes now, and Trump campaign national press holding his stand by with his reaction. But first, let's go Frank Barron. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
So it was a great debate last night. Very interesting to watch it all up close in the arena, and then this morning.
Half a day, folks. Good morning and welcome again for our members. Thank you for joining us. We have some members and other affiliates that are slowly trickling in, joining our day 4, the final senatorial candidate interview. Thank you all for joining us once again. I would like to defer the welcome remarks to our president, Ms. Claire Delgado. Thereafter, we will pass it on to our chairman of our legislative committee, Mr. John Duenas, and I will do the housekeeping rules thereafter. Thank you, President Claire.
Thank you, Peggy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our final day of our candidate forum. I want to take the time to thank you for your time in meeting with us here and answering questions that we're going to be posing to you and giving us your position, your point of view on issues that are important to us, our clients, our industry. So we've got a lot of questions. Time is limited, so I'm going to keep this very short and I'll turn it over to Peggy. Thank you.
Thank you, President Claire. We're very happy and proud that this legislative committee is spearheaded once more by Mr. John Duenas. So I will go ahead and defer to our chairman, Mr. John Duenas, to say a few words before I start.
Thank you, Peggy. Welcome, candidates. GAR has done this, we call it a screening session, where we get to interview the various candidates and find out what their positions are regarding issues that are important to GAR. I think I'll just turn it over to Peg to go through some housekeeping rules before we get into the questioning. I just wanted to say that because 4 senators are present and definitely over 25% of the incumbents and members of the majority party, I think you're going to be getting some very specific questions about what's happening and maybe what could happen. So Peggy, up to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman John. I'd like to also acknowledge all the hardworking committees, members of our legislative this year. Our chairman, Mr. Ray Haddock, is joining us today as well. We have one of our members, Mr. Marcel Camacho, Mr. Monty McDowell, Mr. Ronald de Guzman, and Mr. Earl Garrido. We may have a few more that will join us a little bit later. So thank you all very much for your hard work and getting involved in the 4-day senatorial candidate interview. I thank you, Senator San Augustine, Senator Marsh, Senator Terlahi, Senator Perez, and the wonderful folks that are running with you all, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero, Mr. Dave Duenas. We are missing today Mr. John Ananich and Mr. Frank Meno, as well as Senator Talina Nelson. And yes, just those folks. We wish them well and luck in the coming election as well. So here are the housekeeping rules for everybody. So all 4-day interview schedule have been recorded, and today will be as well, to be uploaded in our website for our members viewing. All candidates will be asked to launch their live video feed throughout the interview. You will stay on muted mode if not speaking. Your name will be called upon and you will be unmuted by the host to be able to proceed with your remarks or in answering the question. You will be each provided strictly 2 minutes for your welcome remarks to include the following: full name, brief background, why you are running or why you are running again. You will each be provided no more than 2 minutes to answer each questions addressed to you for the duration of the interview. The same question may be asked and answered by all candidates, while some questions may only be answered by certain candidates based on time limitation we have. All answers must be germane to the questions being asked. Other comments, feedback, clarifications may be entertained by the panelists at the end, considering time availability. There will be 2 types of alert, a 15-second warning and a time's up warning. To ensure that we are able to keep with the time and allow others opportunity to answer, we will mute any candidate, which I hope not to be able to do, unable to stay within the 2-minute time frame. There will be 2 7-minute break period, which our chairman will determine. Candidates will only be addressing the panelists and not each other. While questions were provided to you in advance, attendees of this interview are welcome to ask questions as well, which are the participants that are slowly trickling in. You will each be provided strictly 2 minutes for your closing remarks to include the following: your full name again, and why you believe that you are deserving of the Realtors vote. Thank you all, and let's have valuable time with this interview. Chairman John.
Thank you very much, Peggy. I wanted to sort of add to President Claire's remarks by saying that the Guam Association of Realtors is 500 strong with families. So we do constitute you might say, a major voting bloc. And that is why it is important to hear what you have to tell us this morning. I will be asking the first 2 questions, but before that, I wanted to ask a question that certainly is related to the first 2. And it requires only a yes or no answer. Peggy will be the traffic cop. She'll be calling the senators to answer. I find that that's a lot more efficient than me trying to figure out who to call first. The question is, are you satisfied with the way the governor is handling the pandemic today?
Thank you,
Peggy?
John. Thank you. I'll address that question to Senator Kelly Marsh. Senator Kelly Marsh did mention that maybe a little troubling this morning. Senator, are you okay to answer now?
Yeah, I put a note in the side chat. I think I'm having trouble with internet. I don't know how others are doing, but I wasn't able to hear the question.
Senator Marsh, the question was, are you satisfied with the way the governor is handling the pandemic to date? And really all it is asking for is a yes or no answer. Did you hear the question?
Okay, so the part that I got is, am I satisfied with the way that the governor is handling the pandemic in general? Is that the question?
That is the question, and it really only begs for a yes or no answer. Thank you.
Oh, okay, just a yes or no answer. Again, I apologize for my internet. So yeah, I always think that there's room for improvement, and we're changing, so we need some changes.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. I'd like to ask the same question of Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. May I ask you to unmute yourself, sir?
Back control that. Okay. All right. Thank you again for inviting me over here. And I see very familiar faces. I guess you're all my peers. I'm from Guam here, born and raised here. Now you have to understand, everyone, this pandemic is new. Do we have the correct answer? Are we responding correctly? My answer is yes, but it needs help. Okay, my answer is yes, but it needs
Thank
help.
you. Thank you, sir. I'll ask the same to Senator Terlahi.
Thank you. I believe we can do better. I think they're working very hard, but we have to do better. We have to bring the community along with our decisions, and we have to make them understand the basis of these decisions.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask Senator Sabina Perez.
Thank you, Peggy. Yes, I believe there is definitely room for improvement. Yeah, we still need to figure out this, restoring the health of our community and rebuilding our economy together, both at the same time.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Duenas, please.
Mute. Hi, good morning, everyone. The answer is no.
Thank you, sir. May I ask Senator San Augustine, please?
Thank you, Peggy. Well, my answer would be yes, but with a lot of room for improvement. A lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of issues there that needs to be answered before we keep changing as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chairman John, before we proceed to your next question, I'd like to give everybody a 2-minute welcome remarks. And I'd like to have that start by Senator Sabina Perez, please.
Half a day, and thank you, Peggy, John, Claire, I forget who else, but yeah, all the members of the Guam Association of Realtors for allowing me to introduce myself and to share my goals for the 36th Guam legislature. The reason that I'm running for re-election is because the work of sustainability is not yet done, and it's even more critical now than ever during this pandemic. As a freshman senator, I set out to accomplish my platform of sustainability, which is why I served as chairperson of the Committee on Environment, Revenue, and Taxation and Procurement. I worked hard during these past 2 years to study issues, gather information, and craft solutions for the long term that protects the health of our environment and our people, and to increase transparency, accountability in our government, advocate for fiscal responsibility to ensure our financial house is in order. That was prior to the pandemic. I think now with COVID hitting our community pretty hard, the work of sustainability is to restore the health of our community, rebuild our economy, address the basic needs of our community from access to healthy foods, affordable housing, diversifying our education, and promoting the social well-being of our community. Using my diverse experiences as a freshman senator, as well as a medical technologist, a diabetes researcher, a high school science teacher, community organizer for over 15 years, I'm committed to the work of sustainability, accountability with integrity. This election is critical more than ever as a people, and we need to come together to address our public health emergency and economic downturn. And I humbly ask for your continued trust and support and vote this election. And I look forward to the ensuing debate and conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I appreciate that. And I'd like to ask Senator Terlahi, please, to go next.
Thank you. So my name is Therese Terlahi. My background is that I am a lawyer on Guam for 30 years now. I was also a professor at the University of Guam in the public administration and the criminal justice studies. And I am a mother of 3. And I have brought all my experience and my skills to the Guam legislature in hopes of making it a more transparent, making it fulfill its duty to bring checks and balances to the government, and to increase the quality of life for the people of Guam first and foremost. And I believe that we can thrive here on Guam, and that it takes hard work and the ability to not be afraid of asking hard questions and not be afraid of uncovering the truth. And I believe those are my strengths. And I have passed much legislation to increase transparency and to ensure that we try to increase healthcare on Guam, to increase the standard of living, and so that people can thrive here on our island.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. May I ask Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero, please?
Hi, good morning. One of the things I just want to bring out is I was born and raised here in Guam, and all of my working experience has been with the public service. I've worked in the private sector, I've worked with the local government, I've worked with the federal government, I've worked for the legislature, I've worked with the congressman. So kind of like my education is here. I have a vested interest on my island and the people. I've known all of you guys pretty much. We've all worked together. So my interest is here. I don't have any businesses. I just retired from the federal government and the local government. This is my third retirement. My sacrifice is to bring myself and my family to this high-risk situation and help the community get back on its feet to this pandemic. And I have the determination, the education, the experience to help the island of Guam, help everyone else that pull through this pandemic. So give me a chance to help out and give something back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Duenas, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi. Name is Dave Duenas, originally from Sinahanya, currently living in Dedido for the last forever years, since 1971, actually. And this is not for most of you that know me, you probably know, but for those of you that don't, and the viewers out there, this is not my first time running. I first ran in 2000, so about 20 years ago. And I figured it's about time to get back into running again. I see a lot of issues that Guam is faced with, namely the pandemic. And I wasn't very happy with what was going on at the legislature, to be honest. And I thought I could come in there and lend my expertise as well. My background, give you a little bit of my background. I'm an Air Force veteran. I did work with the government of Guam with the Bureau of Planning as their spokesperson. I was a staffer for Senator Roy Respicio in his first term. I have a lot of experience in the community. I do a lot of community work as well. So again, I am not one to procrastinate on anything that I put my mind to or set out to do. I act on it right away. And I just don't believe in procrastinating and taking your time. And you see an issue, you get to work on it, and you work with the other senators. And that's what I plan to do. I plan to work with all the 14 other senators, should I make it in there in the 36, regardless of their political party. I've always been a firm believer that when you win the election, you're now in the legislature, there's no need to bring your party along with you. You're now working for the people of Guam, and that's what you got to do, and work hand in hand with all the other senators. It doesn't matter. I don't care who you are, what party.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dave Duenas. I'd like to ask Senator Kelly Marsh, please. Senator Kelly Marsh. Go ahead, please.
This is Masi. And, you know, thank you, everybody.
Senator, I think you're experiencing a little lagging in your internet.
Yeah, I hope this can go through, so please get cut off. But my name is Kelly Marsh Taitano, and you know, I grew up here on Guam. I'm a public school girl. I went through all the way through the University of Guam, and then I earned my PhD off island. And with that, it's been spending the last 25 or more years studying about our region. And I believe that we need a variety of expertise in the legislature. We have an attorney, we have a financial investigator, and what I bring to the table is a social scientist, as I said, who studied this region for over 25 years. This means while rebuilding and revisioning our economy is a top priority, I can do so in ways that are sustainable, that make our island healthier and more stable for the long term, and uplift our community at the same time. There's an article today about our suicide epidemic, and we know we have a drug abuse problem and other problems that are much higher than national standard. So I put all of this together. I've just introduced a bill for intra-regional commerce commission to explore ways that we can be building amongst ourselves and less dependent upon outside forces. I've been reaching out to leaders and businesses throughout the region over the last several months. And this has the ability for us to be building up businesses that help us deal with our food security issues, our zero waste and recycle issues, and even maybe some of our healthcare issues. I research and study every bill that comes before the legislature and onto the session floor, and I vote my conscience based on the facts. It doesn't matter what party it comes from or who it comes from. If it's good for the community, it's good for the community. I would save lives and livelihoods. So I ask, I think you said the time's up, so I'll finish this later.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that very much. And last but never the least, Senator Joe San Augustine.
Thank you, Peggy. My name is Joe S. San Augustine. I'm from the proud village of Jigo. I've been there for over 20 years. I'm married to Joanne Babalta Chargla from Santa Rita. We have 3 kids. We have 10 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, correction. I'm a graduate of JFK. Also, I earned a bachelor's degree at the University of Guam in criminal justice. My work experience is I'm a former police officer. I was the former acting compliance supervisor at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and also an assistant tax investigator at Revenue and Tax. I was the chairman for 3 years with the Guam Education Policy Board, member there for 6. I served the United States Army Reserve and with the Guam Air National Guard, and retired from the United States Army. In the 34th Guam Legislature, I served in the Committee of Education, Finance, and Taxation. And when it was Committee of Education, it included both DOE, UOG, and GC. And then currently with the 35th Guam Legislature, I'm the chairman of the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, Housing. I'm also a member of the committees of the Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land, Justice, Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics, Research, Planning, and Public Accountability and Human Resources. The reason why I'm running is that to continue to serve our people and represent your voices, to ensure that all critical services are well funded, or at least adequately funded, and I want to continue to work on creating legislation that truly benefits our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate all your efforts and thank you for the work that you've done thus far, and for Mr. Leon Guerrero and Mr. Dave Duenas, thank you for continuing to serve our community. I'd like to send a thank you to Senator Sabina Perez for helping the realtors with a seller's disclosure. We appreciate that very much. So thank you for that. And I'd like to turn it over to our chairman, John Duenas, once again.
So I will be asking you the first 2 questions from the list of questions that we had provided to you. The first question, and these two questions are real estate related. We define, at least in our world of real estate industry, we define the real estate industry as not only the private sector work, which we're involved in, sales, leasing of real estate, property management, and so forth, but it also encompasses government of Guam agencies. And those agencies that are involved in the processing of real estate transactions, taxation, recordation, land management interaction, planning commission work, construction and land use permitting, building inspections, building occupancy, and so forth. So the question is, will you support the preparation and passage of legislation that classified the whole of the real estate industry encompassing both the private sector and related government sector agencies as essential services. Now, before you answer, to date, or at least until very recently, most of the government of Guam agencies involved in the real estate industry have either been inactive or they've actually been absolutely closed. And it has definitely hindered progress in the real estate industry. So with that in mind, Peggy, can you direct the
Yes,
answers?
I will do so. Thank you very much. I kindly ask Senator Terlahi to answer the question, please.
Thank you. I do believe there are very many services in the government of Guam that must continue to be provided despite a health emergency. And this is one of the reasons that in March, I was on the phone with the Director of Land Management often to see the status of when are they opening up land management, because I could not fathom that we are going to not be able to record transactions. Those are, I think, very critical. And as Mr. Duenas described, there are other critical parts of our economy and our public government services that must be provided. So I support that. I think that the key is they're saying they cannot open because there is risk, and we must mitigate the risk. We have enough experience. We know what has happened all around the world, and we should be able to mitigate that risk through proper tracing, through proper protocols, and proper technology. And there's no reason the government of Guam cannot be mitigating more of this risk and processing more of these transactions as Mr. Duenas described. I fully support that.
Need to unmute Peggy?
I was victimized by that, huh? I apologize. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. San-Agustin, Senator San-Agustin, please.
All right, Peggy. On the questionnaire that was sent to me, I'm going to read my response, but I'm also going to make a little more comments about my response so that the folks will understand where I'm coming from. I will support legislation that will enforce the safety and health of the private sector and government agencies to work together through this pandemic to make services available for families that are purchasing their forever homes. The Department of Public Health and Social Services has to determine whether it's safe for the real estate industry to conduct their services in a safe manner and will follow mandates regarding social distancing. And also related to the second question that was asked of us, with a shortfall in revenues due to this global pandemic, government services that support economic growth must be open, but in a safe manner. The Department of Public Health and Social Services has to determine whether it is safe for government agencies to conduct their services in a safe manner and will follow mandates regarding social distancing. But I want to also state that number one, it's almost like Bill 369 that hopefully will reach the floor next week, which talks about the notary, electronic notary. We need to get GovGuam to be more, get more updated and more modern in technology so that whenever the real estate agents, they need to get the data, they should be able to get it. I mean, everybody's doing teleworking. I can't believe why we can't get someone like land management or revenue and tax to say, you need to know about this property, we can give you the data and they can start responding. Let's not come up with the reasons why we can't open. There's different parts in the GovGuam that can work and they can go, they can do the teleworking. So if we just upgrade and update our technology in GovGuam, I think things will start working its way. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator San-Agustin. I'd like to ask the same to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Peggy. One of those things is with any services, whether it be government of Guam, the private sector, or any services that are there, yes, I'd like to see them slowly come back and start opening the services, but most especially for critical areas such as your department and where things need to get back in motion because you are the basis of this island's recovery. You're not a McDonald's or something office. You are essential. I believe that you're essential in order for the whole island to get back on its feet, to get the businesses rolling, to get the tourism industry rolling, getting it back in. Those essential services should already be in place and start working with everyone. We're already allowing people to go into big shopping centers, and you're not at your offices. You're not in one big building. You're separated from every part of the island, and I feel that we can all do this together. Just make it safe, work together, make all the services available. And you're right. Everybody's saying, use the electronic technology, use this thing, use the processing. We are so outdated here. We have to fall in line. I sympathize, and I don't do it myself, as healthy as I am. I sympathize for the people that have to wait in line out in the sun to get simple services that you can do online. Now, go figure that. I intend to correct that. And I hope everyone's behind me. Let's move this on, because there's many things that we can do. And you know, we're it. We've got the ideas, we get the technology, we're communicating. Hey, maybe I can Zoom somebody at the revenue and tax and make payment or something. Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask the same to Senator Kelly Marsh.
Masi. Sorry about that. You know, with or without this pandemic, we need to tackle this. We've learned a lot of lessons, and everybody would agree here that a lot of them, unfortunately, have been learned the hard way. We absolutely have to do a better job of making our services more accessible and more friendly. Technology, as has been discussed, allows us to do that. And we're discussing beforehand about services that maybe have traditionally been accessible in person, but with this new technology, we can do things like even notaries can be done over the internet. And we're meeting here over the internet. So we need to get them more online. There is a lot of federal money to do this. This is the time to do it and leverage those federal monies to make those agencies accessible, whether there's a pandemic or not. And we need to be better organized how we're doing this. It was very confusing, what's closed, what's open. We need to get this down and make sure that everything is open unless there are severe needs for that personnel specifically. While we're doing this, we're streamlining the process, we're making it more efficient, actually allow us to streamline the number of government employees we need in the long run. I'm very pleased that I'm going to be having an informational briefing in the next couple of weeks with CAHA, because they've been doing some of this. They're updating themselves with technology so that they're not weighed down with all of the mundane, so that they can provide more services to community. And we just need to go on replicating that throughout the entire government.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Duenas, please. Mr. Dave Duenas. I'd like to move to Senator Sabina Perez for now then. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you for your comments about Bill 383, the seller's disclosure. And we're just awaiting some pre-referral process to take place before it gets referred to a committee. So I'm definitely going to be on that one once it gets referred. So in regards to your question about services, you know, absolutely, you know, the government needs to provide these services that are vital to our economic health. You know, I know we focus on the public health emergency. We definitely need to also think of these as essential services for the economic health of our community. And so in regards to what my colleagues are talking about, I've introduced a Bill 390-35, and that would increase the automation and connectivity within government of Guam. And it involves Department of Revenue and Taxation and all the coordinating agencies. So I have studied this issue and I provided the solution. We're just awaiting a public hearing for this bill. The idea is that, we know that DRT, is critical to the economic, solutions here. And we just need to make them more operational and functional with automation and with connectivity within our government. And this is the solution that I'm proposing. And I think in regards to opening up government, we definitely need to make it COVID proof, protect the health and safety of our workers. And I think we can do both. We can help protect the health and safety of our workers as well as respond to the economic needs in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And I'd like to go to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Okay, thank you. Apologize, had some technical difficulties for a minute, but I recall the question very well, and I am 100% in favor of introducing and/or supporting allowing the real estate industry to be, and all the other agencies that need to go hand in hand with their operation to be essential, 100%. My job as a legislator, should I make it in there, is to make sure and lobby every single one of the senators to support it, be a co-signer on the bill, get all the necessary number of senators to support it and get it passed immediately. It is no reason why it shouldn't. It was closed down in the first place. As other speakers have said, we got technology nowadays. We don't need to close the agencies down or the departments that deal directly with the real estate business. So again, 100% in support of that. Either I'll introduce it myself or I'll get other senators, we'll work together, get all the stakeholders involved, the real estate industry individuals, get them in the office as well and get their input and put together a legislation that would definitely see the light of day and definitely get it passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'll turn it over to our chairman, John Duenas, once more.
So before I ask the second question, which is related, obviously, to the first question, I'd like just to make a comment. I think to the person, the candidates this morning are saying yes. We're nearly 7 months into this pandemic. We have 4 senators, powerful senators, I might say, because you guys belong to the majority and some of you are committee chairmen. So we're counting on you. We're looking toward you to do something. You're an co-equal branch of government. And if you're not satisfied or you would like to see the improvements, then you can take action. The next question is related to the Guam Land Use Commission. The GLUC application processing system has been rendered inactive by the COVID restrictions that have been imposed by the executive branch. It doesn't seem that there's any kind of urgency to get the Planning Commission system back on track. The estimated value of development projects currently awaiting Department of Land Management and GLUC related actions since March is nearly $2 billion. That's a lot of value that we can unleash into our economy. Just by way of example, there are applications before the Planning Commission for approval of worker housing, conditional use for worker housing. Those are dead in the water. However, the workers are coming to Guam. A lot of these workers are designated for on-base projects. And when they get to Guam, after quarantine or whatever the public health restrictions are, they're going to be looking for places to stay. And the only available places to stay for these workers are apartments. And those are apartments that the public is actually looking toward, people looking for apartment houses or places to stay. That will just take apartments completely out of circulation. So with that in mind, I look forward to your answers.
Thank you, Chairman John. I'd like to ask Senator Sonagasin to answer this question, please.
Thank you, Peggy. And that's where I think earlier when I answered, and I gave a two-part answer. With a shortfall in revenues due to this global pandemic, government service that support the economic growth must be open, period. And that's why I brought up the issue about the update, the electronic. You know, I can't understand why it's so hard, why these services can't be provided to the internet, be provided to all the realtors. If you needed something to know about the property, if the Guam Land Use Commission needs to meet, we're doing something they could do themselves. They can go Zoom, they can go virtual, they can get back to business. We got to come up with another excuse other than just a pandemic. We're safe right now what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. And I'd like to ask the same question to Senator Perez, please.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Chairman John, for that question. Yes, and I believe in the survey I did write that it should be considered an essential service. And I think what it would take is working with the Environmental Health Department of Public Health to ensure the safety working conditions of our agencies so that they can go back to work. And you know, like previous speaker said, that you know we need to also work. Definitely, you know, develop solutions as far as teleworking, if that's possible. I mean, I'm always a proponent of that. We know that works. Social distancing works to help reduce the spread, and you know, I don't see why we can't make these functions work remotely to support these functions, especially with the CARES money. There's still money available, and it was meant for something like this to address COVID. And you know, this is something, you know, we need to make the effort to do these, to shift over to teleworking capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Duenas the same question, please.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, John. The amount of dollars that are currently on hold because of the issue that you brought up, John, is you know, every agency goes in front of the legislature every year for their appropriations. I'm not sure if this is the case in this particular incident. I mean, but you know, it's about having foresight and planning. If you know that your equipment is out of date or malfunctioning or broken for that matter, get it fixed. And if you don't have the money when you go up in front of the legislature asking for money for your appropriations for the year, then get the money and get it done. You know, $2 billion. My God, that's a lot of money. We're talking about a lot of jobs to be created, tax withholdings to be made for our government, let alone business privilege tax. So again, it's all about planning. It sounds like to me like they just didn't plan correctly and didn't foresee that, or if they knew already that their equipment was not working, then get it fixed, for God's sake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'd like to ask Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. First of all, I agree. The Guam Land Use Commission work should continue. The Department of Land Management was able to open up its records during this pandemic, make it available for title companies and realtors now to access. I think they even had a drive-through service at the beginning. And that was very important. And so similarly, the Guam Land Use Commission should be able to function with a mixture of hard copies of what they need to look at. It's really just a matter of doing it safely. And it's not even, I think, you know, we don't even need to decide whether it's essential or not, but whether it's safe or not. And if they can operate safely, they should be operating safely, because I'd like to think that all of our government agencies are critical, are essential. And if they're not, then we should get rid of them. But so this definitely is essential. It should be happening. But I really think, and so when we confirmed the director of the Department of Land Management this year, we made it a point to hear his plans as to how he's going to improve access to records at the Department of Land Management. This is huge, not just for realtors, but for the entire community. They all need and want access to the records at the Department of Land Management. So they're supposed to be working on that. But I do agree that the Guam Land Use Commission can operate. That I think what has happened with that particular commission is that all of its well, not all, but most of its members expired at the same time, or coincidentally over a course of a couple months. So they did not have a quorum. But when my committee is the Committee on Land, when we receive the nominees, we act as swiftly as possible to confirm those Land Use Commission appointees, because we do not want that lack of a quorum to affect business. So we have confirmed promptly, and we actually have 2 more on the session agenda for this upcoming week. So even during the pandemic, we were able to do this virtually, to do their confirmation hearings and investigations. And so we do expect them to operate the same, to be able to conduct virtual hearings on the applications in front of them.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask the same to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Peggy. As we can see right now with government services, there are already agencies that are open for services. I'm going to take, for example, the Guam Police Department. If you need records or something to be processed and these other stuff, you can either make an appointment, they'll schedule something in. So those little things, if they're able to open, I don't see why the rest of the government services are not doing the same thing. They provide those services. And it just boggles my mind that we can continue to operate this way. And I don't understand it, but I'm not in the inside, okay? You guys all understand. I'm not in there. I'd like to be in there, and I'd like to fix this thing with all of you guys, is to fix the problems that are there. And again, I say it over and over again, I have no interest other than just to provide great services to the island and get the island back on its feet. If the government of Guam was a private sector, they'll be knocking and breaking down doors, everything just to get back on its feet because it's losing money. So why are we not losing money, right? Why are we not? We are losing basically because I believe that even if you didn't operate, they're still funding. They just still get a paycheck. What about the private sector, like you guys, the realtors and stuff like that? We're losing. The island is losing. Well, that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask Senator Kelly Marsh, please.
Yes, Masi. We're in this pandemic and we don't even know how much longer we're going to be in here. And scientists are telling us that we have more pandemics coming our way. So we need to fix this and we need to get it right. Just as I was mentioning with the other question, we've been at this for 7 months. We've gotten past some of our learning curve, gotten past some of that first stage of it being unprecedented and trying to sort it all out. And we now have to get to that stage where we're fixing these problems. We have to get it online. I agree. There's no reason why they can't be reaching out through Zoom, getting these services available, applications and so forth online and making it all accessible. So we need to be pushing towards that. We need to be making sure that they're looking federal funding if that's what it takes, but to be working in that direction.
Senator Marsh.
Be fixing their issues.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Chairman John, would you like to have a few words before we go to our next question?
Yes, I would, Peggy. Something real quick. The Guam Land Use Commission processing system really begins with the Department of Land Management. And following the Department of Land Management, you have other agencies who are part of the Agency Review Committee also involved. And the planners of land management review the applications, make their comments, and then they hold the ARC. Perhaps the only potential stumbling block to getting the process completely worked out is the public hearing phase, where you go to the municipality or to the buildings for, or to the various communities and hold public hearings. But we have gymnasiums, public hearing attendances from the many planning commission applications that I've been involved in don't involve more than 10 to 15 people. This can be done. So please, senators, if you're going to take action to confirm the appointees, please do so. And if you can, check in on some of the government agencies that are currently either shuttered or inactive to get it going. So thank you. Peggy?
Thank you, Chairman John. I'd like to call our panelist, one of our panelist members, to ask the next question. Mr. Marcel Camacho, item number 1 on our list, please. Item number 1 on our list.
Is it time for a break, Peggy?
Not
yet?
just yet, sir, not just yet.
Okay. So this is a fairly simple question and can be answered with a yes or no. Of course, if you want to elaborate, you have, what, 2 minutes thereafter? So the question reads, will you support the creation, introduction, and passage of a bill to change the operation of the Guam legislature from full-time to part-time?
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Duenas that question, please.
I've been on record many a times. I've been asked that question many a times, and I am 100% in favor of a part-time legislature. Like all of us, we have other skills and other careers, and it expands the possibility of getting other people that are just as capable of being a senator to throw in their hat and become a senator as well. So in short, definitely. I've spoken to some sitting senators and some potential new candidates, and we are all in the same mindset that we definitely would support and or introduce immediately, so that as early as 2021, 2022, we could very well see a part-time legislature. Yes, I'm in favor, 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'd like to ask Senator Sabina Perez for that question too.
All right, thank you, Peggy. Yes, I do not support a part-time legislature because I think a senator's, it requires a full-time dedication. And being a chairperson of Environment, Revenue, and Taxation and Procurement, that was definitely a full-time job. In addition to doing, looking at the other issues that my colleagues have brought up and addressed as well. So, if we were to become a part-time legislature, that would require me to look for another job, and that would definitely take away the effort that I've put towards creating long-term solutions. And that's something that I wanted to do in this term, is to really study the issues and gather the information and craft solutions for the long term. I was committed to that, and I can't see myself doing this as a part-time job if I wanted to make long-term positive change. And I think the worth of a senator, should be, recognized. We are, here for the people, for our constituents. And if we were a part-time, that would limit the access of the public to weigh in and to help shape policies. So, and in addition to that, we hold the purse strings. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and gathering that information was a big part of it. I'm sure my colleagues know that, and to advocate how to best allocate best appropriate the funds to better serve our community. So yeah, there's a lot of hard work that went into this term, and I can't see it seeing it being a part-time legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. No, I do not support a part-time legislature, but I'd like to explain why. I do agree that the legislature wise policy would be greatly benefited by experienced people in our community coming into the legislature to serve. That I agree with. However, I just feel if we want the legislature to be the checks and balances that it's supposed to be in order for our government to be fair and transparent, then we have to put in the hard work. And it's my experience that it is definitely hard work. If you want to make wise decisions, if you want to be informed and you want to listen to the entire community, I think cutting off the time that you serve is going to very much impact the ability for the entire community to be heard. It's going to impact the amount of work that can get done, especially where the solutions are very, very difficult. And you cannot afford to have a legislature that's going to be, you know, hogwashed by, or, you know, just ignorance. We need to really dive deep, and we need the help of the community, yes, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I can't stress that enough. And I also feel like one of the reasons I ran for office at the stage of my life, it's, you know, I'm one of the older ones in there, but it's because, you know, I'm not beholden to any industry, any people, nothing. I've got no strings attached to me. And that's one thing that I feel like I'm able to give the people of Guam everything I've got, because I'm looking out for them and I want them to thrive. And so I'm going to look at all sides. I'm going to be as fair as possible without undue pressures from anyone, you know, my employer, for example. I'm very free that I do not have, you know, I'm employed by the people of Guam. So that's who I answer to and no one else. And that's how I think it should be. That's how we get rid of corruption. That's how we become the checks and balances we're supposed to be. That's how we push transparency, and that's how we push action that has been long-standing not addressed. It takes that very, very hard work and concentrated effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask Senator Marsh, please.
Yes, you know, we are a co-equal branch. If we cut ourselves down, there's an imbalance, and it gives the other entities abilities that get beyond our oversight. You know, we have billions of dollars coming in. We have an extremely tight budget this year. That's a perfect storm for issues to happen, and we cannot let down the level and intensity of our oversight. I have carried out FOIAs, I have carried out oversight hearings, I've even been the senator in the last several years to carry out a subpoena calling for that accountability and transparency. A lot of intensive work, but we have to do it to make everybody accountable and transparent. We want quality legislation. The community deserves that. You know, some of what we're tackling is the Safe Drinking Water Act. That hasn't been updated in 16 years. The NORI, making it online and maybe beyond Guam's borders, that takes a lot of scrutiny, and we have to get it right. If we don't get those right by putting in a lot of time for research, working with the AG and others, checking out what the other states are doing, what the best practices are, then we're cutting ourselves short. So there's so much going on. Each one of us has at least 7 agencies, maybe 14 directors and deputy directors, and dozens or hundreds of employees that we're overseeing. So again, that takes a lot of time, and the community deserves that close scrutiny. Also, as was mentioned, we need to do this without conflict of interest. It's already kind of waters that be navigated, and the least opportunity for any kind of conflict or connections to these outside forces in our community or beyond, those are important so that we can stick to the issue, isn't the perception of or any other level of conflict.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. Senator San Augustine.
Yes, ma'am. You know, Peggy, and to everyone listening, as I served my first term on the 31st, I quickly learned that our people require my full attention when working for them. And we need to remember that, number one, you know, as others have answered it, I'm retired Army. So it's not an issue about money, and it's quite obvious because on our first term, a couple of my colleagues that are here, we reduce our salary. So it's not about money, but we honestly believe that the legislature needs to be full-time. My work in creating policies, addressing stakeholders' concerns, and maintaining oversight of the agencies and departments under my committee require constant communication and work throughout the term. A part-time legislature will not allow any senator to focus on just creating legislation and new policies without having to communicate and understand the concerns of our people directly. I don't know for some of you, but I get calls throughout the night and throughout the weekend. If you call my office, that number is transferred to a staff that answers that. And that's 24 hours. So that's a full-time legislature. All right. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to ask Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
Thank you. I guess if I was to decide whether it's a yes or no to support it, I'd have to disagree. I have to say that it should be a full-time service. This is a service for the people, and it serves you. It serves the realtors. I can't see you guys coming to us. You have a long list of things that you'd like to have done, but you want to, if I'm not saying you are, but the people who are considering to have it in a part-time service, there's other constituents that are out there wanting our full-time service. And I agree with Senator Sanagisi. I agree with Senator Talai, and I agree with Senator Mars. Our services do not stop at an 8 to 5 Monday to Friday job. And I want to be available for everyone. My ears are going to be listening to the outside activities and bring it to the office and get it done. I'd like to listen to all of you, listen to all the constituents. And I like to do this out on the road, out in the field. And I don't want to put a time frame into this thing. I want that time frame to be available so we can sit down, the all 15 senators, and work out an agreement to satisfy the whole island of Guam. So yes, it's going to take a little more than just a part-time job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. We are at the top of the hour and we will be ready to take our first break. But before that, I'd like to defer to Chairman John or Vice Chair Ray Haddock if you have any particular comments or any of the panelists before we head to our first break.
None from me.
Okay. Any comments from our panelists before we head to our break? If none, then it's 10:03 right now, 7 minutes. 10:10, we will be back. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. We're back on. Thank you so much. And I would like to call our next panelist member, Mr. Monty McDowell, to ask question number 2 on our list, please.
Gotta unmute, Monty.
I want to see if you noticed, John. About 20 years ago, we had quite an economic downturn here, and we referred to it as a Japanese economic downturn because we were so directly tied to the economy of Japan. But in reality, it was a world economic downturn. And as a result of it, my company, which is just a facsimile of most Guam companies, we took the principles, we huddled in the conference room, and in a matter of a couple hours, we completely reorganized our company for survival. Prior to that economic downturn, we were paying for almost the entire medical for our employees and their families. Now we pay very little. We've always wanted to get back up, build our cash reserves to the point that we could go back to that and be more giving to our employees and bring that quality of life back to them. But it seems like every time we try to get there or about to get there, there's always something the government of Guam comes up with that takes those revenues away from us. And one of the ones that happened in the last legislature and has not gone away is the 1% increase in business privilege tax. There was a hearing there. Pretty much every business leader on Guam came to the hearing, and they had gut-wrenching testimonials about the rationale why it needs to be rolled back. And they were exactly right, all of them. This was a temporary increase that has seemed to become permanent. Now the question is, will you support the repeal of the 1% increase in the business privilege tax, restoring it back to 4%?
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. I'd like to ask the first this question to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero, please.
Yeah, hit me with that one. Huh? Hi, Monty. Yes, I will support the just reading it over. Yes, I will support it. There are a lot of factors to be considered, but generally, the reason why I'm supporting is taxing hurts your pocket, stuff like that. So everyone needs every single amount of money that they can save right now. We can't just work and try to please the government. The government needs has its own priorities, and you have our priorities, and all the taxpayers on Guam. They need that every single amount of money that they can save, and it all falls back to. I believe that it all falls back to the residents, the citizens of Guam, and stuff like that. So helping you out, yes, I will support it. And like you said, it was something that was supposed to be temporary. So why is it permanent? So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask Senator Terlahi the same question, please.
Thank you. So I was in the legislature. That was my first term when they increased that BPT by 1%. And I did not support that increase at the time. I believe that the government, especially at that time, had more that it could trim, and that we should do that first and foremost. And that we also have exemptions, or we had poor collections at the time that we should improve, so that we don't have to increase the tax, but we have to collect the taxes that are owed and clarify exemptions so that there aren't loopholes. And so I've supported the repeal of this BPT after not supporting its increase. And I actually made a motion to that effect during this term. I've also supported efforts to give parts of this BPT back to small business owners. And in fact, so some businesses have benefit from a temporary repeal of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator San Augustine, please.
Thank you, Peggy. On that response, my support of the rollback will be based on the commitment from the business stakeholders to ensure they roll back the cost of goods for our customers. Let's just remind ourselves and for all the listeners that number one, several years back, the Guam legislature increased the BBT from 4 to 6. And then the biggest motion was, oh, let's reduce it back down and give back the money back to the people. Well, we never did. The prices of goods never went down. And we also have to remind ourselves that the reason why the BBT went up to 5% was because of the Trump Job Act. If you remember back then, the GovGuam lost a lot of revenue. And yes, there's a lot of revenue that needs to be collected, yes. But we need to be mindful when we start talking about revenue needs to be collected. That's a moving target. And until there's enough folks at revenue and tax, they're never going to be able to collect. But if we can get a commitment, and that's what I asked. I asked that when I was on my first term, and I asked that even on this term, from the business industry, are they willing to roll back some of their prices so that it'll just work, in hand with the consumer? And at the same token, if you all remembered, I tried to introduce the sales tax, and that's something I'm even considering this term. And if I'm reelected, don't be surprised if I do introduce the sales tax and reduce the BBT. And you have to remember that when we reduce the BBT, we can't go any lower than 3% because of the commitment to the bonds. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to ask the same to Senator Sabina Perez, please.
All right, thank you, Peggy. Yes, and the answer that I provided was that I was concerned about, the 1% rollback would equate to about $61 million cut. And having come out of the budget talks, we cut $60 million from our budget. And my concern was that we would affect much needed services. And in fact, we were heavily criticized that we were impacting critical services with that $60 million cut. So, in thinking, I'm reconsidering this answer as we face unemployment of 40,000 people, and, businesses are, struggling. And, I'm reconsidering this answer. And I think if there's a way that we can find another revenue source that can supplant the $16 million with a rollback. And I think there are ways to do that. First of all, I think cutting our government, we can still streamline our government, and there's some low-hanging fruit that needs to be approached. It has to be approached from a low-hanging fruit to, from how we procure things. As one of the things that I've done is to reform emergency procurement so that, we're not going to it. We're not paying premium price for the goods that government purchases. And I've also promoted planned procurement, which means we can do bulk purchasing and limit the amount of expenditures in government. So there is a way to streamline and a government, if we can direct those savings to, lowering the cost, lowering the BPT, I'm in full support of that. And, if we can find other revenue streams, I would, definitely would use that to support this reduction. So it has to be a measured approach. I feel it must be a measured approach. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is furloughs, which can lead to a downward spiraling in our economy. And that has, stabilized our government. But, we need to do better. We need to support our businesses. And, I'm, going to work hard to look for these ways so that we can save money in our government and direct it towards our businesses and the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to call our next panelist, Ms. Fabian Fabian Respicio. My apologies. To ask item number 4 on our list, please, Fabian.
Was my internet, Tina, was I called upon?
No, Senator, not for this question. There are questions that will be asked of all, and there will be questions that will be asked of some. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Respicio, please.
Okay, I'll just jump right into the question. Will you support a significant reduction in expenditures during this current lockdown and PCOR 2, specifically payroll reduction and other expenditures? And if your answer is yes, what other expenditures do you feel can be reduced?
Senator Marsh, may I ask you to please answer the question?
Okay. Yes. We listened to an economist who advised us Yeah, we're looking for cost-cutting measures. We just went through cutting 60 million, but the economist advised us, like, do everything you can to be pumping money through the economy, be looking for every federal dollar you can. And we may get to a point where we need to cut back hours of our employees and maybe even more. But what they were explaining is, if we keep as many full-time workers in the private sector and the government sector, our businesses are hurting and they need customers. Full-time employees have enough money to be customers, and that pumps money into the entire economy and keeps it healthier. So, we may get to that point of having to consider it, but we want to keep the economy pumping as much grant opportunities, other opportunities, any to get the money pumping through our economy so that we can be serving as customers and that can be circulating through the economy and just helping keeping us afloat. So I don't think it's the first thing that we should go through, but we should be working towards the streamlining what we've talked about through the efficiency and reducing labor as we balance that out. More technology, more efficiency, fewer people needed. We should be working towards that. And I do have my agencies working towards that.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. I'd like to ask the same to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Thank you. Definitely our government, and I didn't make this up, it's common knowledge that our government payroll is the #1 expense, and our government basically is bloated. It's been too many employees in the government for years and years and years. And it goes back to the, I kind of tie it in with the rolling back of the BPT. The government of Guam just needs to learn to live within its means. I'm not saying we're going to lay off, furlough people that are currently in the government, but through attrition, retirement, resignations, it would slowly dwindle the amount of employees that we have. So again, the government is way over bloated with staffing, and that's the biggest bulk of the expense in our government revenue. So we definitely need to reduce that through attrition. I'm not saying at all that we need to terminate and or furlough people immediately. No, through attrition, through retirement, a hiring freeze, etc. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'd like to ask the same of Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
Thank you. Working with the government, yes, I think it's a little drastic to try to implement that cost reduction at the moment. We need to stabilize the patient first before we start drawing out the blood and everything, because it's needed somewhere else. So again, it's just my analogy is like, let's get to the situation. Let's get through this pandemic. Everyone is hurting at the moment. If you cut somebody's budget, it impacts the family. You got to consider where we're at. So I just want to take it from the home front, the family members that are holding on to their money, and probably that's maybe one government of Guam employee is supporting 10, 20 other family members that are working in the private sector. So keep that in mind. He may be the only source of income that's supporting that family. So if you cut down that budget or something, you may be hurting a lot more people than just one person. So I don't want to rush into that, but I do support that working with the government. Like it's been mentioned, suggesting other stuff like that. We'll work to attrition, let them retire. Let's work up and be efficient in the government services, and just keep it from there, because we if if we can work together with a limited budget, we've been doing this. I was in GPD, and we were many years ago, before I retired in 2000. We were already getting cut 10% here, 10% there, 10% this year. It came down to 30–40% already, and
Thank
stuff
you.
like that. But we still managed, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, hang on for the moment. We'll work it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator Sabina Perez, please.
Yes, thank you, Peggy. And as I said earlier, I believe government can streamline it. At least there's still room to cut government. And some of the low-hanging fruit has to do with procurement. And so one of the things I've advocated for is planned procurement. There's no reason why we can combine our purchases so that we're getting the best possible price through bulk purchasing, and also minimizing the cost of shipping, which is pretty substantial. And I think that that's a low-hanging fruit that we can do. And I think with COVID and the necessity for social distancing and teleworking, I think we need to really look at our leases and see how we can consolidate leases and services to cut government spending. So those are some of the low-hanging fruit. And I truly believe that there's work to be done to combine operations between sister agencies so that, again, we can streamline our government. So there are low-hanging fruit that can be, approached to get to streamline our government. And in addition to that, I think, IT infrastructure needs to be improved to kind of to decrease or at least shift the work that our employees are doing to more to help facilitate service for our people. And because I know, like with, take for instance, Department of Revenue and Taxation, a lot of it is manual processing, and they're behind several months. And there's no, if we have if we provide them the right resources, they can do their job much quicker, and the services will improve for our people. So yes, I think there is definitely room for improvement.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to call our next panel member, Mr. Ron de Guzman, to please ask item number 8 on our list.
Good morning, senators and candidates. This question is, are you in support of the military buildup? And give us a brief explanation for or against. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. de Guzman. I'd like to ask that question to Senator San Agustin, please.
Yes, thank you, Peggy. Do I support the military buildup? I'm retired Army. Yes, I support the military buildup. All right. Was there anything following that? I can read my answer what I gave. I support the realignment efforts of the military. However, it must be all done in tandem with what we consider to be beneficial for all, both inside and outside the fence. We must ensure that all agreements made through the economic impact statement must be fulfilled and is meant to benefit all. Deviation from this agreement must be addressed to ensure that no one is above the other. Maintain the checks and balances for productivity and success. Military buildup? Yes, full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. I'd like to ask Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you for the question. Military activity continues to contribute to our economy, for sure, and especially during COVID, when all other business activity has been greatly restricted. So, however, the activity or expansion by the Department of Defense must be done with increased transparency to government of Guam, and opening its process to the public and more readily providing information. Because the government of Guam has to mitigate the adverse impacts that were outlined in the 11,000 pages of the environmental impact statement. And these include adverse impacts to public safety, our healthcare system, our schools, and our environment and cultural sites. We're trying to balance the economic benefits, and I think we can continue to try to mitigate the adverse effects. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask the same to Senator Marsh.
Yes, you know, with the military, it is one of the pillars of our economy. It's a long-standing family tradition. Even at University of Guam, I went through part of the ROTC program. And, you know, we talk about having a one Guam approach. So within all of that, as has been talked about, is the need for balance. And for me, a lot of it is about protecting our resources and making sure that it doesn't cost us more in the long run. On one hand, we do have these benefits, but on the other hand, we do know also we're dealing with trying to get compensation for Agent Orange, for window effect from radiation exposure. We just are entered a legal case with closed eyes. We want an open eye for the local government, and we have to have a local for the federal government as well. That are doing this in a way that protects us for the long term. It doesn't impact our health. It doesn't impact our economy in negative ways by having to cost us more to fix things because we didn't protect it enough in the first place. So my strongest stance in this is we recognize, you know, the traditions, the lengthy history, the economic benefits, but we have to keep that eye open to protect our community and protect our community's resources. They deserve that. Our children and grandchildren don't deserve to inherit a couple $100 million program, cost of fixing things that we didn't take the time to protect. So it is about finding that balance and having them be just accountable as our local government is supposed to be accountable.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. I'd like to ask the same to Mr. Dave Duenas, please.
Yes, the answer is yes. I support the military buildup. As previous speaker just mentioned, they are a big factor in the revenues that our government receives. And then again, we need to have more better dialogue with them. You know, they just do. I do support them 100%. How the military buildup. However, we must have a bigger voice in what they do, how they do it, and they got to listen. You know, just recently they forgot who brought it up about the use of sonars and the adverse effect to the marine life, and they flatly just ignored it. But again, it all boils down to have a bigger voice, whether it be with the local military or with the folks in the mainland that supervise the admiral here in Guam, so that they're able to work with us a little better. But in short, and I'll keep it short, that we definitely need the military. They've been here a big part of our lives, and again, a big part of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dave Duenas. I appreciate that. I'd like to call our next panel member, Mr. Monty McDowell, to ask question number 3, please. Item number 3 on our list.
Question number 3 on general governmental.
Yes.
This is kind of back to the fact that it takes a certain amount of money, obviously, for companies in the private sector to retain in order to provide the infrastructure improvements its own company needs and to better take care of their employees. So anytime we see the government increase anything that takes money from it, it has detrimental effects to our business. So the question is, are you in favor of increasing taxes and or fees to deal with government of Guam revenue shortfalls caused by COVID-19 imposed restrictions on private sector business operations?
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. I'd like to ask Senator Paris for that question, please.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Mr. McDowell. Absolutely not. I think the way that we're going to get out of this pandemic is we have to expand our economy and taxes would definitely move in the opposite direction. And I think to help rebuild our economy, we need to provide tax incentives to industries that are going to be COVID resistant and help us also address the needs of our community. And some of the industries that I'm looking to help to boost is healthcare, IT, agriculture, amongst other things. I think rather than raising taxes, I think we need to enforce our current laws. And that's something that I prioritize, is to try to close the loopholes when it comes to like tobacco taxes. I think that's something that I've been prioritizing in my office as far as closing some of these loopholes as far as collection of taxes. Yeah, so I do not believe in tax increases, not at all.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero, please.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Next question. I was a little disappointed that we rushed through the military buildup, because that is a big impact for the island. And if I can touch on it just a little bit, and then we'll get to that.
Sure.
Let me answer the current question. I said, am I in favor of increasing the taxes? Definitely not. And you're right. This is not the time for it. Let's work together. And we're talking about consolidating services and saving money and stuff like that. To increase the tax is just going to hurt everyone overall, hurt you, hurt every single person that's out there and our citizens. And I can skip the military thing, but if you want to move on.
You have a few more seconds, sir, so you can go ahead and speak about it if you'd like.
Talking about now?
The military buildup. You have a few more.
Yeah, we have to all remember, says, who liberated us? We were liberated by the military. There was a buildup since then and stuff like that. My father served in the military services. They built us up. Out of a sibling of 8, I am the only member that did not join the military, because I stayed on Guam to provide Guam the services, public services. I was the Homeland Security, taking care of the people of Guam, while my siblings went off to the nation to take care of the whole nation. So yes, I support the military. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask Senator Terlahi the question in reference to Mr. McDowell's question about the government of Guam revenue shortfall.
Whether I'm in favor of increasing taxes or fees to deal with the government shortfall imposed by restrictions on business operations. Well, as I answered earlier to the tax question, I'm not in favor of increasing taxes. Have not been, and my record shows that. But I especially think it's even more important at this time, while the businesses have been shut down. It's just it's an impossible thing to do, actually, and it, we've already got a crisis on our hands, and I don't think any one of us wants to make that worse. I do think that there were fees in the government of Guam that are being charged or should be charged to particular groups of people that are just so outdated and so low that they've caused the rest of the government to subsidize those services that are really not provided to everyone, only to some. And so there are some fees that I thought should be adjusted. And I know that for example, it's not my bill, but Customs and Quarantine continues to ask that their fees be adjusted per service to help them to increase their inspections. And I think I'm willing to look at those fees on a case-by-case basis. I don't think we should be imposing fees that are going to impact everybody while we've got 30 now sounding like 40,000 people who are out of jobs. But if there are people who are utilizing government services, making profit, and these services are particularly for them, then I think the fees should be updated where necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Thank you. I'd like to echo the responses from a majority of the previous speakers. Absolutely not to raise the taxes. No, I think there's better ways, other ways we can take care of the shortfalls within our government. And I mentioned it earlier. Our government is way oversized, bloated, and it has been for decades. And we just need to teach them, the government, to live within their means. So as far as raising the taxes, it's a definite no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'd like to ask our next panelist to ask the next question. Mr. Marcel Camacho, item number 7 on our list, please. Number
Thank
7.
you, Peggy, Madam President. Another easy question for all of you, I'm sure. What functions of the government of Guam do you believe should be privatized?
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. I'd like to ask Senator Marsh that question, please.
In our discussions about streamlining the government, it's important to look to make sure that it makes sense, that we're not cutting our foot off or shooting ourselves in the foot, I guess that's how that saying goes, at the same time. There are a couple of considerations there. One is, like I said, the cost benefit analysis. It needs to make sense. You know, I've overseen an agency, DPR, that had outsourced for their pool contract. Now, there are certain reasons why it didn't work out well, but we've discussed it in other reasons, in other ways as well. Is it more cost effective to have that specialization within the government, because it was a very large contract, $660,000, and then it wasn't done well. So it's not always the answer, but they are contracting other services. So we have to weigh that out. The other is I've seen examples like the Historic Preservation Office held hostage in a sense. And so they have gone through many, many issues about not being able to, their website, not being able to have that accessible to the community and all the services that are connected to it, because it was caught in that knowledge being owned by somebody else and it got caught up in other issues. So we need to weigh out those things. I think it can be very beneficial. I think that there are wonderful ways that we can have these partnerships and add to our economy in that way and streamline the government as well. But I do think that it needs to be weighed out carefully so that it's a true benefit, because that's what we want, it to be a true benefit.
Thank you. Thank you,
Share,
Senator Marsh.
Peggy, if I can just share with the group.
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to handle the transition of the Guam Telephone Authority to Teleguam back under the, I guess it would be the Camacho administration. And I think that was a very good success story. Even after we, they negotiated the purchase price, we went back a year later and renegotiated the adjustment to the purchase price, saving the government of Guam another $6 million. So there's got to be some entities out there within the government of Guam that we can use to follow along with that model and have the government become much more efficient. I think that is one of the better success stories of the privatization of an entity of the government of Guam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. I'd like to ask Senator San Agustin to answer the same question, please.
All right, thank you, Peggy. I would consider private-public partnership, such as the maintenance of government agencies, in which private-public partnership will allow private business to have overall oversight of the maintenance operations. I'll give you a good example. If you look across the board, I think DOE is already heading in that direction, or at one point when DOE was running their food service, they turned to private private company, that reduced the budget, the payroll budget. And if we start taking a look at the maintenance, I mean, I honestly can see that a lot of villages are hiring, doing contracts. Well, why don't we just take all of that, the ground maintenance, and let's go privatize. Let the government pay for that, and we just adjust as we need. And then we take a look at across the board. Senator Marcel brought up GTA. Right now, GPA is doing public-private partnership when they're dealing with the power plant. Well, let's just take a look at what's going on across the board, and let's take a look at how much more we can privatize, because it's all about right-sizing the government. And when we right-size and we start identifying certain things, maybe it'll work.
Just to add something that was under discussion yesterday, we wanted to add the opportunity for public non-government organization partnerships, NGOs. So I'd like to have all of you kind of think about that and see how you might feel about that versus a public-private partnership. Okay.
All right, yes, no problem. Please, if you can send us a copy, we'll take a look at it and let's work it. Thank you. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero, please.
Thank you, Peggy. That's a very good question, is how we can fix the government. There are certainly going to be some areas that we could privatize. Again, the priority is providing more than just adequate services to the citizens of Guam, all the residents of Guam, provide that government services. But then the expenses, like I said, maintenance and other stuff like that. The other things that will cost the government, let's say, for example, ground maintenance, or any, let's say, parks and recs that you're going to be having, or government services, the cleaning. I think one of the success stories, and I don't know where it's coming from, is actually the highway maintenance, where the grasses are being cut, because I believe the mayors, and I don't know who's doing it now, but the services I saw, I'm seeing a lot, way better. The streets are cleaner, the tree maintenance and all these others. Those are the kind of services, I'm not sure what it's called, auxiliary services that could be privatized. The telephone businesses, GPA, Guam Waterworks, perhaps. And you see, I'd like to, of course, I have to get into the legislature, but one of my question is, Waterworks and even power and stuff like that. Guam Waterworks is like, we provide, they're a government service. But we all know that for all the water, and it's on record, for all the water that they draw out, what are they losing? Over 50% of that water, it just leaks out into the island. So we're paying for that inefficient, incompetent services. Can we privatize it? I don't know whether it'd be beneficial, but I think so, because a private company, that's going to be a significant loss for them. So it's not something that they can afford. We're working together with the government of Guam, and I'm going to hit right on Waterworks. Why are they keep racing. They keep telling us to conserve power, conserve water. We're doing that at home. But then they tax on all the other services on top of that. It doesn't make sense. I pay more for the other added on expenses than I actually do in my water consumption.
Thank you.
So that's something I like to look in.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. This is a great question. Lots of things to say on both sides. I think you have to look at each attempt to privatize. And for me, if there is an expertise that the government does not have, then by all means, we need to partner with someone who has that expertise. This has been suggested many times in management of the hospital. And, we do this already. And, or if it's not expertise we need, then we need value. If it can be done cheaper by a private company, that's when we should consider it. But I think we've seen some disasters in the government where we actually ended up paying a lot more than we would have to just do it in-house. And but then we've seen the successes. And so, for example, behavioral health does not have full capacity to do drug treatment. They very much rely on partners. And these are NGOs who partner with the government of Guam to provide shelter, to provide drug counseling services, and some very Catholic social services, another fantastic example. Without them, the government would completely fail in providing critical services because we do not have that capacity. And so again, I appreciate, I think GVB is another example where they have pretty much entered into a partnership for almost everything they do, for marketing, for even their visitor safety programs right now are being private, they share that with private companies and very many of their functions. So I just think we have to continue to look at them very critically, make sure that they are giving us value and that we are not, otherwise they become the contracts that we need to cut, that they're not critical, right? But if they're giving us good value, better value, or they're giving us expertise that we do not have available, then by all means, yes, private partnership is a good thing for the government.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. And then I'd like to ask another question. I'd like to ask one of our panelists to ask another question. I'll defer to Chairman John to ask item number 5 on our list.
Okay, I have 2 observations and a comment before we move on to the next series of questions. An observation. We've been at this for close to 4 days, interviewing incumbents and candidates that want to be incumbents, and it just seems to me that most of at least the incumbents that have been answering our questions, it seems to me that some of the incumbents feel like the private sector should respond to the government. And the next observation, it really should be the other way around, I'm sorry. The government of Guam should be responsive to the needs of the private sector rather than the other way around. The next observation I have, we have 2 economies on Guam, private sector and Gov Guam. The private sector is on life support. The government of Guam is staycationing. Please take that to heart. Think about it. The comment that I have is that the Guam Association of Realtors believes in keeping score. And we have been doing this for the several past elections. We interview the candidates, we get to hear what they say, we get to hear their promises and their plans and so on and so forth. And then we look at those candidates again when they're running for the legislature or at least approaching an election, and we find out if they actually were true to their word. And we have found quite a disparity in some of the way the senators have acted over the years. So question number 5. This is about minimum wage. Are you in favor of increasing the local minimum wage? And why? And before I ask Peggy to ask for answers, we should already realize that we have a federal minimum wage that we must comply with. And the other aspect of this can be explained much better by one of our panelists. Monty, can you make a comment before they start answering?
Yeah, I'll just put a little realism into it because in 1990, I retired from the Navy at Pearl Harbor Shipyard. I came home. I started this company, Advanced Management. And at that time, and I feel from that time till now, the market drives what the minimum wage should be. politicians should not get involved in it. And so minimum wage is $4.25. I could not get a high school dropout for less than $6. I could not get a high school graduate for less than $7. That's what I paid. That's what the market required me to pay. But the federal government seems to be inclined periodically to set a minimum wage. But our Guam legislature continually is not going to be outdone by the federal government. They're going to give just a little bit more. And it's obvious that the private sector feels that the legislature is a social engineering and trying to buy votes. It's a very clear and plain to us. And then they use the pretext that, well, they got to have a living wage. Well, when I'm bringing in a high school dropout or a high school graduate, that's a starting wage. I've given them an entry into the work environment. Now they can avail themselves of the training I have to offer, training Guam has to offer, and work their way up. It's not meant to be a living wage. And then the ramifications of the actions, every time minimum wage has gone up, I've had to lay off 6 employees this last time because my customers can't wear the added costs I have to have on the service I provide for them, so I could pay the additional. Because when you set increased minimum wage, you increase all wages. You raise the floor, you raise the ceiling. So I'm not always sure you understand the ramifications of the action. So the question here is, are you in favor of increasing the local minimum wage, and why?
Thank you, John, and thank you, Monty, for that clarification. I appreciate it. I'd like to ask Senator Paris for that question, please.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Mr. McDowell. I'm honest, I did support the last vote for the minimum wage, but considering that we're in a time where we have 40,000 unemployed and businesses are struggling, I can't think that to raise the minimum wage at this point further. I think I would like to focus my efforts on developing industries that have more trained workers that would avail themselves of a higher wage, such as healthcare. Definitely we need to increase a trained workforce that can provide this, higher wages. And that's something that I would like to focus on more rather than, increasing the wage further as it is. So I think that's my approach to this.
Thank you, Senator Paris. I'd like to ask the same to Senator San Augustine, please.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy. Yeah, I was the one that authored the now Public Law 35-38 was the minimum wage. We need to remind ourselves that, number one, today I wouldn't support any further increase because of the pandemic. But when this was raised, the only impact to the private sector out of 30 or 40,000 people was only 2,300 folks. So if unfortunately, if it hit Mr. McDonald's company, well, if the shoe fits, so be it. But at the time when we were raising this was not for the purpose of hurting Mr. McDonald. It was not for anything else. It was just to raise the rate. And at the same time, let's keep in mind that the federal government is actually looking at raising the rates even higher than what we got today. So am I in favor of any further increase? Not during this pandemic. We can't do that. We can't afford that. And the private sector can't afford it. And it need be, because of this pandemic, it goes in effect next year. We may have to just introduce a pause on the next wave or the next wave raise that's going to come in the next year in March. All right. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask the same to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Okay, thank you. Listening very intently, I definitely agree with Mr. McDowell. The legislature should have no business in raising or lowering the minimum wage. We should just simply mirror what the federal government dictates that we must pay, like we're doing. So, do I support increasing the minimum wage? No. Mirror what the federal government dictates? Yes. And is it a political thing when they do it locally in the legislature? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dueñas. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator Marsh. Senator Kelly Marsh.
As much as possible. With where we're at, definitely not. Our economy needs to be developed and grown. And so part of what I did is I was supporting 1.4 million to GCC and the we can retrain our workforce. And I do believe that that's the direction that we need to go in, is as we're diversifying and growing our economy, to do so in ways that we're giving people the option of careers. You know, we'll always have a certain amount of service industry, but there are many ways to be lifting people up, helping them be their own small business owner and things like that. So I do support that. Now, I do want to say that one of the things that was really important for me to hear in this last bill was an economist came and testified he said that those people earning that minimum wage will absolutely go out and spend it. And it's one of those things that causes the economy to circulate. Now, there are other impacts as well. And so trying to weigh out the bigger picture with the small, you know, the other impacts, it's always a tough decision. So I very much listen to his big picture view. But as I said, I'm really focusing on those other approaches to get us to growing and helping people have those careers and specialties which are going to take them up to those living wages.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Marsh. I'd like to ask the same to Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. I was in the legislature when they made a decision regarding increasing the minimum wage, and I do not take any of these decisions lightly. I listen to all sides, and at that time, it's true, as my colleague has pointed out, that the economists were telling us, yes, it's going to impact businesses. However, there were very few businesses at the time that were not paying their employees minimum wage, and timing is critical. So of course, right now, I can't imagine any economist is going to come in and tell us this is the best time. It's probably the worst time, and it's just not a time to consider increasing wages while people are unemployed. But I think these types of decisions must be, you know, considered with the big picture. For example, you know, what is the tax situation? Are they earned income tax credits? Or are those, you know, taken away? Everything all together, because otherwise, the other side of not paying, you know, wages sufficient for these employees to you know, take care of their families is that the government of Guam is paying it on the other end. We're going to have to increase taxes, which I do not want to do, by you know, in order to cover these people who could not cover healthcare, who could not cover shelter, and that's why it's a big picture that we need to look at. And I don't think anybody wants to affect businesses. We do not want to negatively impact businesses, and you know, but we do have to consider the cost of living on Guam and all the other factors that are affecting Guam. Right now, we've got a pandemic on our hands that's creating a huge crisis in our economy. So I do not think anyone is going to consider any further impacts on businesses if we can avoid it. Of course, that's what we are going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask the same to Senator Paris, please.
I believe I answered the question.
Oh,
about.
I apologize. Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Peggy. We have to realize that this pandemic thing it has already impacted our economy, and we're going to be in this for the long haul. So It'll probably, if I make it into the 36th Guam legislature, it's gonna go beyond the 36th Guam legislature. So I do not support the raise of the minimum wage currently. And until there's ever a time when we can get our economy back on track, making Guam, bringing all the tourism in and our economy is robust again, that's when I'll consider. And I'm not going to be in it for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. We are at that time to take our second break. And before we do that, I'd like to defer to Chairman John if there's any few words before we go on our second break.
None from me. Peggy.
Okay. Thank you. It's 11:05 right now, so we'll see each other at 11:12. Thank you.
Peggy, do you think we're gonna finish on time or be a little late today?
Marcel, we're going to try. Peggy's taking a call, so I'm going to step in for her until she gets back.
Well, just to let you know, I have to sign off around 12:30.
Okay, yeah, I think we can hopefully get be done by then.
Yeah, I was hoping we were going to finish by 12. We have a
When are you
appointment.
guys going into session, Senator?
On Monday, yes, we are, 10 a.m.
Monday, 10 a.m.
Okay.
This is the last session of the year?
No, I think there will be one in November for sure, and perhaps one in December as well.
We have to have a Christmas tree bill, you know that, right?
I hope not.
Okay, so it's 11:12. I guess we can go ahead and get started. I know that time is running short, so if everybody can come back on screen. And I will be timekeeper until Peggy gets back. Okay, is everybody back?
Everybody who's anybody.
Okay, while Peggy is out taking a phone call, so I am going to open the forum back up. I will turn over to the supplemental questions. Marcel, if you can take question number 1. And that would be under general government. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm at the wrong attachment. So sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, back to, we're going to the supplemental questionnaire. I apologize, John. The question will be turned over to you. I'm taking over until Peggy gets back from her phone call.
Okay, thank you, President Claire.
Thank you.
The question is, are there current laws that you believe are not useful and should be repealed? If yes, what are they? Just as a comment before you give your answer, I believe a candidate running for this Guam legislature, if a candidate identifies all the many laws we have out there that aren't working or are useless or actually cost us quite a bit of unnecessary expenses, I think that person will be elected. Claire, do you want to call since you're the traffic cop, can you call
Temporary.
this?
I'd like to turn this question over to Dave Duenas.
I should have run.
Okay, thank you. Good question, good question. We have a whole bunch of laws in the books, and a lot of them are not being enforced, period. And we need to take a look at all the different laws that are in the books, get rid of the ones that are not being enforced, ones that are not being properly funded. And again, those that are in the books that need to be there need to be enforced. That's emphasis on that. Enforcement is the key to everything. And I see a very lax approach to enforcing any of these laws, especially one that I didn't even mention one of them, but for example, the litter law. You know, we have a litter law. Nobody enforces it. Nobody. You know, they don't give tickets. They don't give citations. Nobody gets fined. So again, in short, we need to get rid of a lot of the laws that are in the books. They're not being enforced, and they're useless, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave Duenas. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Frank Leon Guerrero. Same question.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, certainly, there are a lot of laws that are there that's just been sitting in the books for many years that need to be revisited and removed or something. Because I believe that those laws are perhaps keeping some agency having to to dedicate working people to support that particular law or something. But if it's not working and we're not enforcing it, like Dave said, who's supposed to be enforcing the litter laws? And if they're not enforcing it, then maybe we should shut down that agency or cut down their services and things like that. But I'm sure there's many. And given that opportunity, I'd be very interested in kind of bringing that up. As a law enforcement officer, there's a lot of things that are in the law enforcement books that need to be revised. They're outdated. And that'll be one of my focus, because my position is I want to get the trust back to, no, I take that back. The people of Guam trust the law enforcement community, I believe that they're providing a good service, but they need more support. So there are laws that need to be revisited, change them out, and let's make it better. Let's make ourselves a more efficient government. Thank you.
Thank you. Due to time, we're going to go to the next question, and that is, I will turn it over to Bobby Sachdesh. Unmute.
I don't see Bobby. Oh, there he is. Sorry, Bobby.
Okay.
No problem. Half a day, everybody. Well, before I ask my question, I wanted to give, my question involves, will you support legislation that will repeal the increase in the doubling of property taxes levied on improvements on land property valued at $1 million or more? This was a law that was first passed during the 34th legislature, corrected during the 35th legislature. And so our question here is, will you repeal it? Before you answer the question, I wanted to explain a little bit of the impact of what this law has done towards landlords with properties of $1 million or more, commercial buildings with the properties of $1 million or more, and commercial buildings with $1 million or more. But most importantly, those that were in contracts when this bill took place were not able to increase their costs at that time, but in fact had to absorb the extra added cost of the property taxes. Now, that's one point. Another point is those that were not in contract ended up increasing their costs and passing those costs down towards their tenants, towards their commercial tenants as well. They're increasing the rental market and making it, in some cases, making it hard for those, especially in lower income housing situations, to afford affordable rental units. And lastly, the fairness of only increasing those properties of $1 million or more. How, in your opinion, how does this even sound fair to all of those that maybe had a $800,000 property or $900,000 property and did not have to face that? And so it was quite done kind of quickly and rashly. So that's my question. So I'll repeat the main question again. Will you support legislation that will repeal the increase in the doubling of property taxes levied on improvements on land property valued at $1 million or more? Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I'd like to turn this over to Senator Therese, if you may.
Thank you. Again, this is, I did not vote on that bill, or I voted no on the bill that included this increase in tax. But I want to say, if I remember correctly, they were considering an increase in all real property taxes at the time, an increase in GRT taxes at the time. These were all on the session floor in debate actively on that day. And that I remember asking for the data before they came up with the 1 million only. It was I who had asked for data to show me the different categories and how many taxpayers are in each category, so that if such tax was going to be passed, it be narrowed as much as possible. However, this was something sponsored by the Appropriations Committee at the time, and in response to the Trump tax cuts. I do not support increasing real property taxes at this time, and so I will not support any further increases. I would have to look at a repeal of this carefully. I'm not going to promise that today, the repeal of the 1 million or over. Like you, I've had many friends and family who've been impacted by this measure, and it has very serious effects. However, to repeal that, I can't promise that at this time because I don't want to increase any of the other taxes or to increase real property taxes across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to turn this over now to Senator Joe San Agustin.
Yes, Claire. Exactly what my colleague mentioned. It was on the 34th legislature when it was put up for vote to increase the million or more, and then on the 35th on this term, we found that we got a legal opinion to that enactment. So we had to update that and get it corrected. And then that was passed. But at the same token, when the pandemic hit, that's when I received many calls from many of the folks in the industry that asked that, is there any way they can put a moratorium on this 1 million or more? And I'm developing that bill right now. I met with several of them, is to put a moratorium similar to how I introduced the amendment to the Dave Santos Act. So when I do introduce it, and if my colleagues choose that they want to repeal it, I mean, I won't stand in the way. It's costing the government $8 million. That's the amount of revenue that's generated from the million or more. It's $8 million, and it all originated from the Trump Job Act. And that's all we were doing back then when we allowed the increase, or to correct the error in the public law that allowed the increase of the million or more. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Senator. I will turn this question over to Senator Kelly Marsh.
So, I've been looking and working towards ways that allow us to roll these back. We're squeezed in so many ways. It's a high cost of living here. We know part of it's the Jones Act. We got hit with tax cuts. We have unfunded mandates like the Earned Income Tax Credit, where we're not treated the same as states. We're not reimbursed. And we're left out of a lot of federal programs. And if we add to that the compact impact, maybe as much as 90% of that is on our tax-paying shoulders. So I've been trying to put effort into getting to these root causes. If we can get to eat up on some of these, if we can get better consideration or more appropriate reimbursement for compact impact, it relieves a lot of that weight off of all of our shoulders, and it gives all of us more flexibility. With these non-considerations, with these squeezes that we end up with, it creates this terrible pressure on ourselves, and it creates a terrible pressure on each of our tax-paying shoulders, where we have to come up with these kind of drastic measures that really nobody wants to. And so with the bigger picture, I will still continue to look at these things. I've made some headway with the compact reimbursement. Guam is actually leading the way to this, and they have talked to us about maybe not cash, but debt relief that can add up to maybe $100 million or more a year. If we can get $100 million or more a year in different kinds of debt relief and grant waivers, that gives us all kinds of flexibility to buy textbooks for our children and do the things that we need, and not have to resort to measures like this.
Your time. Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to turn it over to Chairman John Duenas to call on the next question.
Yes, this is a quick question that only requires a quick answer. Hold on. Will you support the right to protect one's home and property with a firearm. Claire, you want to call the first?
Sure, I think yeah, I think yesterday we asked for like a yes or no. Is this a yes or no?
Yes. Yeah, it's so we can get through the question quickly.
Right. Okay, so yes or no, I'll ask each one. I will go to Senator Sabina Perez.
I think that, yeah, I believe you're referring to the Castle Doctrine. I am kind of hesitant to support this because I think guns in general provide other hazards, and the more we can move away from use of guns in the society, I think, yeah, I'm just more in favor of other means of addressing some of the issues that we're facing rather than increasing guns in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Thank you. I absolutely support the right to bear arms. It's part of our Constitution. The U.S. Constitution gives us that right. And more importantly, here in Guam, you know, we got rampant crime out there. These criminals don't blink an eye to break into your home invasion. It doesn't matter if you're home or not. They're just getting that, what's the word I'm looking for? But, you know, the fact of the matter is crime in Guam is really getting bad. Some of it because of the current pandemic. But yes, I definitely support the right to protect your home with firearms. It's our constitutional right, and I totally agree with it. I don't, you know, I tell friends personally, I said, hey, if someone breaks into your house, you don't have to shoot him to kill him. I kind of jokingly said, you know, instead of using a full-fledged firearm, why don't you get a Benjamin? A Benjamin, at least you'll give him some pain. But to answer in short, definitely 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the question to Senator Sonagasin, please.
Yes, ma'am. The answer is yes. What you're referring to is the Castle Doctrine. And I just want to advise everybody that I did introduce last term and this term, I introduced the Stand Your Ground Act, which allows a person to defend himself or herself using defensive force, not only when at home, workplace, or in an occupied vehicle, but also when the person's in a place where he or she has the right to be in. You know, right now, in order to get a firearms ID, and even a concealed firearms ID card, you're required to go to training to be taught on how to use the weapon. So there are a lot of factors already involved to making sure that any individual that does possess or purchase a firearm, they have to go to training. And I do believe that, yes, I do believe that you do have the right to protect your property with a firearm. And whatever weapon you possess. I'm a former police officer, so I believe in that. And I believe in the Second Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sonagasin. I'd like to ask the same to Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. I don't think anybody in the legislature is against the Second Amendment right to bear arms. And I don't think anyone wants to lessen the ability of persons to self-defense. And so I definitely support self-defense, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to also ask the same question to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
I thought you were going to miss me. Okay, law enforcement. Do I support it? Yes, I support it. And it's because you have to defend, you have to protect your family. I'll protect myself. You're right. Take a look around you. The police officers are not going to be there. And you can call them at this very moment, pick up your cell phone, and see if you can get a police officer to come to you within even 5 minutes. We know that most shootings on the studies, the firefight is done in less than 3 minutes. So you're dead before you can even get a police officer. Do I support it? Yes, and it's got nothing to do with the Castle Doctrine. The Castle Doctrine, it just kind of protects you from going through legal ramifications in the court. If you can defend yourself, prove that you're defending yourself, then you by all means use deadly force to protect your family. What I'd like to promote is education, and it's something that the police department and any other agency, being the Guam Community College, is to start providing the training and education for gun safety. That's what is missing. Right? The gun safety, and one of the laws about concealed carry is requires you to go over to shoot a police qualification course to go hit a target. What does that have to do with gun safety in a concealed carry? If I'm concealed carry, I have to be very concerned about the status of the weapon itself. I don't want to kill myself or kill someone else in the family or someone else in the street. So education has got to be key. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I'd like to defer the next question to our panel members, Mr. Ray Haddock or Ms. Fabian Resquicio. Item number 4, whoever is available to ask that question. Item number 4 on the list. Would it be you, Ray? Mr. Ray Haddock?
Why don't I let Fabian go ahead and do it?
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Thanks, Ray. Okay, so our question today is, will you support an increase in the number of law enforcement, specifically police personnel, and attending equipment and facilities?
Thank you very much for that question. I'd like to ask Senator Kelly Marsh for that question.
Well, the answer is definitely yes. As numerous things have come across us in the legislature this last term, I supported everyone that has made it to the session floor or is something that we voted on. We have 100 more police officers today. We have at least 9 more police vehicles that we've gotten through federal grants. So I think we need to leave no stone unturned in getting this taken care of. We've also supported having police reservists and making sure that we need to look at every option available, whether it's hired police, federal grants, just anything that we can to increase that safety measure for us and having the police out there.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. Thank you for that. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator San Agustin, please.
Yes, in terms of public safety, village surveillance from island residents has proven to help local enforcement carry out justice in our community. We need to recruit more police officers, and strengthen community programs to deter crimes in Guam. We need to do everything we can to help the police department and all the other law enforcement. Because it's, and also, you know, when I was in the police department, we had a program, and Frank remembered this back then, we were in what they called the neighborhood watch, neighborhood patrol. And we had to know for every area that we covered, we had to know everyone that lives in each home. And if we can turn that program back on, I'll tell you what, the people in each area we cover will tell us exactly who the criminal is, who's doing the drugs, and then all of a sudden everything starts, you know, we start to build a safer Guam, a safer community, and we just got to build that. And then it's through the education with everybody that's coming on Guam. We go through this process, and everything just seems to work its way. It's just a matter of making the effort to go through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Thank you. Definitely yes. As Senator Marsh pointed out, we do have a few more police officers, but nowhere near the amount of officers that is being mentioned by even the police chief. I forgot the exact number, but we're still far short of the number of officers that we need. And again, you know, the men in blue do what they can with what they have. We got a little more officers, a little more vehicles, but definitely not enough, and we need to properly fund them for sure. And I would be in support of that 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask Ms. Senator Sabina Perez the same question, please.
Yes, I would support the police department and increasing our law enforcement. I think when we came into office, I believe we were under, there was a personnel, a shortage of, I believe, 200 officers. And I don't think we've achieved that in this term. So we definitely need to increase the amount of personnel in the police force. I think also I would like to encourage community policing as well. It's important that our police officers know who's in the community, and that provides for a better service and less perhaps confrontations and maybe more prevention. I think that's something I would encourage with the increased personnel in the police force. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to go to a next question, and this would be for item number 6. I'd like to call panel member Mr. Monty McDowell to ask question number 6.
I think it's no surprise for everybody if I mention that drugs have permeated our community to the devastation of our island and really across the nation. But we're here on Guam, and that's where our efforts are concentrated. I personally represent the Chamber of Commerce and my company with the therapeutic courts since their inception in 2002 of the adult, the juvenile, the family, the DWI court, the veteran treatment court, and most of them are all predicated on drugs and alcohol addiction or usage. And people come in to the program, they spend a certain amount of time, usually 1 to 3 years, and they come out and they are productive members of themselves and the community of Guam and their families. Having said that, we'll graduate, for example, from the juvenile drug court, 20 people, and then coming into the drug court simultaneously is 30 people. So we're providing, the court is providing a very valued service to our community, but we're not keeping up with it. There's so many avenues, and I've heard even druggies tell me that they feel that 100% of the crime in Guam is drug related. So with that stated, how do you plan to address drug abuse on the island?
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. I'd like to ask that question to Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. I'm familiar with the drug court program. In fact, we've passed some laws to ensure that these therapeutic courts continue to thrive at the court because we've seen their success. I want to thank you, Mr. McDowell, and all the members and who are businesses who are actually supporting that court. But I agree, it's a huge problem on Guam. It is. It's been told to me by the past AG, the current AG, that the drug issue is really driving other crimes such as theft on Guam. There's no dispute as to that. So I think that the drug courts are one way that we are addressing this problem. The second way is increasing the capacity of the behavioral health, Guam Behavioral Health, to provide drug treatment to stop the addiction. That's another thing that we've been able to increase funding, and they've expanded. And so they do this, of course, in partnership with private entities as well. And the third one is we have to stop the importation of drugs at the border. And I think this is continues to be our biggest challenge. And we've had many hearings where this is the issue we're trying to address, and we've had many recommendations. However, I hate to say it, but the Customs is still not able to do a sufficient amount of inspections, and we need to shore that up. And it has to be a priority of the executive branch that Customs stops these drugs. I don't think building a fancy facility for Customs has to come first. It has to be that, yeah, they're going to go and do their inspections at the airport, the port, as much as possible. I think the inspection rate that we were given was very, very low. And I think they've testified that what they need in order to do this are canine units, additional canine units, that those are what they find to be very effective. And so we've tried to assist Customs in different efforts, such as cutting their rent at the airport. That has not been successful yet. And so we are still trying to to assist customs in this way so that they can expand their inspection. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero the same question, please.
Okay. Yes, definitely. There's a 100% drug problem on the island. There's many aspects of enforcing it, but going back to, I'm going to take the little guy in the street who's already probably unemployed or something because they were released from work because they showed up positive, perhaps of just marijuana, simple little stuff, first offenders. And you know what? He can't get back into it and help the community because there's a lot of places that forbid employment and because of the minimal offense. So we have to work in those kind of services to get these people back in and employed. Otherwise, he needs to survive. All right. Take this guy who's just a first offender. He needs to survive. He needs to get food. So what happens? He goes over and robs his neighbor and does this other stuff. So it magnifies and stuff like that. And Senator Terlahi, and this is where I want to come in. I'm going to say this, and it's going to offend some people, but you can buy all the fancy equipment for the customs officers. But if I know you, hey, Par, I'm coming in, okay? Clear me, stop. That's the problem. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator Marsh, please. Senator Kelly Marsh. Not too sure if she was able to hear the question. I'll go ahead and go to Senator Sabina Perez, please.
Thank you, Peggy. I see this as a supply and demand issue. We have to reduce the supply and reduce the demand for drugs. And, like my previous speakers have said, we really need to enforce it at the borders and, look at who's in these positions to do that. I think, there has to be more oversight when it comes to customs and quarantine and the airport, how it's implemented. As far as demand is concerned, I was a teacher at Simon Sanchez High School. I saw the use of drugs in our youth, and it really we need to develop and implement a zero tolerance towards drugs in our schools, and to really utilize the resources, the government resources, to address the need. Why are the youth engaging in drugs? And I'm sure it's related to, but perhaps the context, the families that they're from. So, it involves definite, consistent look and study and a solution, a comprehensive solution to decrease the amount of drugs. And I think the other thing is custom and quarantines should work towards getting the HIDA certification so that they can get more resources for more enforcement. So definitely it's about understanding what the roots of the problems are in regards to why are we not enforcing it better. And then the other thing is why are more of our people going towards it? And I take these concerns very seriously because it impacts a lot of our services and our economy here. And that's something I'm committed to looking at and addressing it this coming term.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator San Augustine, please.
All right, thank you. And this is on how do you plan to address the drug abuse on the island, correct? I just want to make sure I'm on the same question, right?
Correct, yeah.
All right. Well, one of the things, because being formerly from the Board of Education. Next one, awareness. The people need to be educated what's going on in Guam. There needs to be an awareness. Then first, we need to protect our borders from entry of illegal drugs by enhancing and providing the latest technology for all public safety officers, so they'd be better they may be better to intercept the importation of narcotics into our island, and most especially armed them with the resources to combat Guam's illicit drug problems. Secondly, we need to continue to fund and support rehabilitative services to fight these drug issues of our island that are negatively impacting many families. Then this is a community problem that takes our community to work together to address. I stand ready to support local organizations who have remained committed to helping those with addiction. But I go back, it's education, education, awareness, awareness. People need to know, need to be aware it does exist. We do have a problem. We need to find a way to resolve this problem or not minimize it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It looks like we have one more question before we do our closing remarks here. So I would like to call our panel member, Mr. Ron de Guzman, and I think Mr. Bobby Sachdej, our immediate past president, may have a follow-up question as well on this one. So item number 12, please.
Yes, senators and candidates, what would your top two priorities, legislative priorities be for this coming legislature, please?
Was there a follow-up that you wanted to do with that one, Mr. Bobby Sachdej, or do you want to do it after?
I can defer to after, but rather just while you're answering the top two legislative priorities, please explain briefly why as well.
Okay, thank you. And I'll start with Senator Kelly Marsh.
Yes, well, my internet is still connected. I really apologize for this. It's usually so good. But, you know, first just has to be the economy. And so that's why I've submitted a bill just recently on the Intra-Regional Commerce Commission. We have to be just looking at every angle. And, you know, likewise, I've been supporting different efforts from drone technology to breadfruit production, anything that comes across our way that looks like it can be viable, that it's solving some of the being perhaps reliant on some of those outside sources and things like that. So that would be my top priority, because that is what, as you know, and you've been saying all along, it fuels everything else. Nothing is really operating if we don't have our strong economy. That would be the top. And the second would be, you know, some of the hardest work in some ways are figuring out how to uplift the community. It gets to some of the drug issues. You know, we went to the Coast Guard and they warned us of these cartels that go across the ocean, and they've got millions of pounds of hardcore drugs, and they're dropping it off at Pacific Islands, and we're having to fight it with every ability we can. And it has to be a multi-pronged approach. It has to be police, it has to be customs, but it also has to be helping the soul of our community. It's not a coincidence that we have suicide rates that are so high. It's not a coincidence that we have just the heights of sexual assault and domestic abuse. So we have to figure out those ways of uplifting the community, and I held roundtables to do just that. And some of that legislation is the hardest to pass because people, well, to be frank, they worry. They worry that if it's not hitting education or public safety directly, or one of those top three priorities, that if we're getting to helping people feel that support of self-worth and value that they need to be able to have tools to fight off some of this. That's what I'll continue to do, though.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. I appreciate that. I'd like to also ask the same question to Senator Sabina Perez.
Thank you, Peggy. I think we're in the fight of our lives with COVID. You know, we definitely have to deal with restoring the health of our community and addressing this immediate public health emergency. But what COVID has shown us is that it really exacerbated our health issues, our underlying health issues, and it's affecting those that have those comorbidities. And, you know, I am committed to helping to restore the health of our community, both short-term and long-term. I think my second priority is rebuilding our economy. We have 40,000 people unemployed, businesses struggling. You know, we need to act urgently. and to ensure that people have livelihoods and continue to do so. And this is something that I'm going to fight for. And so those are the two priorities that I have. And in regards to rebuilding our economy, it was pretty clear that we can't rely on our big industry tourism. We need to diversify and localize our economy with the disruption of the supply chain. We need to do this quickly, and I am going to work hard to do those, to work on these priorities in this upcoming term, should I get reelected. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paris. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Dave Duenas.
Oh, thank you. First and foremost, every single thing from healthcare, education, public safety, it's all contingent on getting control and preventing the spread and treatment the treatment of the COVID-19. Everything else, it doesn't matter. You have to get control of the COVID first. So that'll be my top priority. The second priority will be the hospital. We have a dilapidated hospital. It's already been determined that we need a new hospital. It's not cost effective to renovate it. So answer your question in short, first and foremost, number one priority is get a handle on this COVID-19, the prevention and the treatment of, and healthcare, the hospital second. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'd like to ask the same question to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero, please.
Thank you. Like anyone else's priority is keeping ourselves alive, keeping the community alive, public safety, health services, and all of these come in line. So that'll be my first priority. And once we're able to stabilize and keep the people, we need people to run the businesses. So the second priority is establishing, helping the businesses survive through this pandemic. And I repeat myself, we're going to be in this for the long haul. This is not something that's going to just go away tomorrow. It's not going to go away next year. The impact of this COVID pandemic is going to remain with us for many, many more years. We'll probably be dead by the time this thing stabilizes. So the economy. So I like to look in the long-term effects of it. So again, stabilizing my patient, stabilizing the person that I hear today, so we can keep this economy going. Work with everyone. Work with the military. Work with everyone so we can survive to get through this pandemic. And as I support the hospital, but that hospital is not going to be built for the next 10 years, okay? I need it today. So let's explore other avenues, whether it's working in the military. There are services in the military that they've offered, whether it's personnel, buildings, other equipment or something like that. And let's not forget the U.S. government. They're the ones who's really keeping us alive and afloat, okay, for the moment. So those are my two main priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leon Guerrero. I'd like to ask the same question to Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. So we've got, you're asking our top two legislative priorities. Obviously, with what we are experiencing with this COVID pandemic, this healthcare emergency, everything has to be focused on avoiding deaths and operating safely. And I believe we are capable of doing this. We must do it based on data. We must do it openly so that everybody can follow along as to how we are intending to operate safely. And then I believe everyone will do their part to operate safely. We've seen it. We've seen the businesses comply with very different guidelines. And so in the next few months, from October, November, December, I think this is everybody's priority, is getting these businesses back to operations, getting the government back to operations, full operations, as safe as possible, avoiding deaths. And of course, you know, I am the healthcare chair. Healthcare always going to be my priority, but if I am reelected, we're going to be coming in January. That will be the end of the first quarter of fiscal year 2021. And we just passed the budget for fiscal year 21. And the end of the first quarter is the best time, I think, that we should all focus on looking at that budget, looking at the revenue projections that we made, whether they were accurate or not, looking at the expenditures that we are continuing to make and whether they can be streamlined, and looking whether we need to completely reprioritize based on what we see in January after the first quarter. And I am always dedicated to doing the hard work of reviewing the finances, reviewing the information behind it, demanding the information behind it, which I think has been one of the biggest problems, is getting information fast enough for us to act fast enough. And but otherwise, I am dedicated to healthcare to avoid deaths and operating safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. And Senator Sanagasine, please.
Yes, thank you. And I echo the same thing. It's about getting Guam back on its feet and operating safely and avoiding or reducing the number of deaths. But so when we talk about priorities in the legislature, you all know we need to improve the transparency in the government so that when we take a look after the first quarter is over, exactly what's going on in the government, where's the expenditures, I'm willing to support, and I will support reorganizing or right-sizing the government so that we can spend within our means and not try to get it bloated like some mentioned it here today. And we need to diversify our economy. Our economy should not only be a two-pillar economy, which are tourism and military, but a three-pillar economy that includes a self-sustaining economy such as agriculture and aquaculture. But at the same token, you know, what are some of the priorities I mentioned? This will be if I'm fortunate to be reelected, it'll be my third term, and I'm gonna reintroduce the Stand Your Ground bill. We talked about the possession of a firearm. I brought it up also. Like I said, if I'm reelected, I'm going to introduce the no primary bill. We don't need a primary election. We need to get rid of that and just go to the general and be done with it. But then at the same token, I'm also looking at, and many of you have mentioned it, do we want to reduce the GRT? Well, I brought it up before on the last term, is a sales tax. So I may introduce a replacement and reduction of the GRT to make it a sales tax. But when we introduce a sales tax, we need to identify a possible exemption on the sales tax, such as food and medical, so that the people of Guam don't have to be thinking that, wow, I'm going to pay more. No, when I go shopping, I don't have to pay more. I'm paying less in sales tax. If I need to buy my drugs for the manamku, and for many of us that are online, we don't have to pay for sales tax for that. Something reduced, then we figure out a way how to help the other business industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sanagasine. So we have come to an end, and before, again, we do our closing remarks, thank you all very much, Senators, and Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero and Mr. Dave Duenas for joining us today. I appreciate it very much. We'll do one more round to do your closing remarks, again, to say your name once more and why you believe that you are deserving of the Realtors vote. Thereafter, I will defer it to our Chairman, John Duenas, and the final closing by our President, Claire Delgado. I'll start with Senator Sabina Perez.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you to all the members of the Guam Association of Realtors for this opportunity to hear the concerns that you have in order to respond to your needs, and also to share some of the goals and my platform for the upcoming 36th Guam legislature. And again, the reason I'm running for re-election is because the work of sustainability is not yet done, and it's especially critical at this time. You know, I'm committed to restoring the health of our community, rebuilding our economy through diversification, using my diverse experiences as a freshman senator, as a medical technologist, as a diabetes researcher, as a high school science teacher, and a community organizer for over 15 years. Additionally, I'm committed to advocating for government accountability, transparency, and fiscal responsibility, as my record has shown. This election is critical more than ever as our people, we need to come together to address this public health emergency and economic downturn. And I'm committed to doing the work of sustainability and accountability with integrity, and I humbly ask for your continued trust, support, and your vote. Please vote early and safely. Please vote Sabina Perez. I'm number 14 on the Democratic ticket. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Perez. I'd like to ask Senator Terlahi, please.
Thank you. And thank you to the Guam Association of Realtors for this forum. I very much appreciated the questions and the opportunity to discuss them with you. My name is Therese Terlahi. Again, I am a 30-year lawyer on Guam. I have 3 children. I was an instructor at the University of Guam in criminal justice and public administration. And I am in my 2nd term in the Guam legislature. And of course, I thought very hard about running again, but we are in the middle of a pandemic crisis where 30 to 40,000 people have ended up unemployed. We were already exceeding the national average in poverty, and I am very afraid that Guam is in for a very tough time. And I do not want to leave without putting in everything I've got to help us to get through this tough time. And I believe we can act together, we can act informed, but we can also act tough, you know, and we are tough and we are resilient. And we can get our community back to safety. We can get our government to act wisely and give the best value to the people of Guam who are funding the government of Guam. And we can get our families back to shelter, to employment, and access to healthcare. That, and I am pledging that I am going to continue to ask the hard questions and to give it everything I've got, do that very hard work that some people will shirk away from. I'm not afraid of it. And I will demand that the legislature is the check and balance that it was meant to be by the Constitution and the Organic Act. And that I will act without being beholden to any special interests, and that I will act for the benefit of the people of Guam.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Duenas.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to participate in today's Zoom interview. It was a pleasure. Love the questions you asked. And just to recap real quick, right-sized government, yes, definitely. PPT reduced, 100% yes. Part-time legislature, yes. Reduce, make it a part-time legislature. I know some of the speakers this morning didn't agree with that, but that's just me. I got my opinion, they got theirs. Military buildup, definitely support the military buildup. Top 2 priorities, get a handle on this pandemic. Everything else is contingent. Again, this is just a recap before I say goodbye. Thank you. What else here? That's it. Anyway, had a great time. Pleasure being here with you all. I love this Zoom thing. As you probably noticed, I'm Zooming from my bedroom. So I had an advantage over you guys because I got to change my shirt and change hats like 3 different times. I had a blast. Thank you. I look forward to more sessions. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Duenas. I'd like to ask Senator Sanogsin, please.
Thank you, Peggy. My name is Joe Essenogson. I'd like to thank the Guam Association of Realtors for this opportunity to participate today. You know, as a former police officer and a retired in the Guam Army National Guard, former assistant criminal tax investigator and acting compliance supervisor with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, former board chairman and member of the Guam Department of Education Board, and now serving the people of Guam as a senator. I have seen and experienced the multitude of concerns and issues that face our community. This has helped me shape my work ethic in making sound decisions and supporting the needs and desires of our community. Also, my experience in the 34th and 35th Guam Legislature serving as chairman of various committees has taught me that bipartisan is crucial in moving beneficial legislation forward for our people. And you know, I mentioned earlier, 3 reasons I'm running: to continue to serve our people and represent your voices, to ensure that all critical services are well funded, and I want to continue working on creating legislation that truly benefits our people. My name is Joe S. Augustine, and I'm number 1 on the Democrat ballot. And I humbly ask for your support and vote this election. Thank you, Jesus Marcy.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. I'd like to ask Senator Marsh, please.
Yes, so my name is Kelly Marsh Taitano, and COVID-19 has changed each really thank the Guam Association of Realtors. You know, as a leader, expanded the in-office early so we could vote safely. I strengthened protections for our Guam brand and giving more support to our local entrepreneurs. I have worked to save our struggling community by holding those roundtables to get to some of the roots of our social problems. And I continue to call for consideration of our vets. I have fought to save our environment in ways that protect our health, our businesses, and don't cost us more in the long term. I wrote a law to empower the Island Beautification Task Force to develop short and long-term programs to tackle our illegal dumping and the destruction of public, so much more. So I humbly ask that you consider taking the lessons that I have learned this term and allow me to apply them the next term. I guess you've got the bookends. You've got number 1, San Augustine, and I am number 15 at the bottom. So yes, I just ask for your consideration.
Thank you, Senator. And I'll defer to Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you for the Guam Association of Realtors for bringing us over, and the great opportunity to speak out to the people and just tell them who I am. I have worked for the public service, being a public servant to the community here on Guam, where I live and expect to die. And I've been here for working with or Guam, servicing Guam for over 45 years. And about 38 years of that is in law enforcement. I've been taking care, I call it my homeland security, protecting the safety and the welfare and everyone here on the island. So when they go out, the military goes out, or the federal agencies that say go out, and they're from the Homeland Security, says, no, I'm the true Homeland Security. I stay home while you go, protect the nation. I am staying home to protect the island. So I want to continue to do that. And I repeat myself for others who have missed it. I just retired from the federal government as the head of the U.S. Marshal. I was the head of the U.S. Marshal for Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. That's two distinct, and it's only the two distinct districts in the nation that I held the position for. There's no other U.S. Marshal across the nation that has or is in charge of two separate districts. So I was successful with that. You never heard anything about us doing anything wrong. Before that, I retired as the Chief Marshal for the Judiciary of Guam. If you go back a few years, look at the state of the Judiciary Marshal Division. Remember them in their T-shirts and blue jeans and other stuff like that. I was hired to go over there and help the Marshals Division develop into that. So with the training, experience, the education that I had accumulated, I was successful to bring that service. So now look at go over to the courts and look at the services, the security clearances, their image has grown up, and before that. I go back I'm running out, okay. I retired from the Guam Police Department 25 years, and I retired as a marshal and many other services. I was an adjunct for many law enforcement officers. I taught thousands of law enforcement officers, and hopefully I'll continue and help them in that ways, and helping the community of Guam. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
number
Mr.
4 on the ballot, number 4, Democratic side.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Leon Guerrero. I will defer to Chairman John Duenas. for his closing remarks, and then President Claire Delgado.
Thank you, Peggy. I think I want to expand a bit, just a real quick, expand on what, on the warning that Senator Terlai gave us. Unless we get the private sector up and running again, I think we're going to be in trouble very soon. I'd like to thank everyone for participating today. I think you've made your positions clear. And I and the rest of the GAR membership wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman John. Duenas, President Claire.
Thank you, Peggy. Want to thank the attendees for being here, the panel for all your hard work, and for you, the candidates, for your time in giving us your responses and certainly your insights on your position to the various questions that we asked. I know some of them were tough questions, but you gave us all of that and we appreciate it. As our legislative committee chair, John Duenas had said, we're an association of over 500 members. And while we keep track of voting records and performances and platforms, we also look forward to building and maintaining a partnership with you all. I think that's important to further build, maintain our industry, our island, and just keeping an open dialogue. We look forward to keeping that up with you. So with that, I know we've kind of run over time. I wish you all good luck in the election. I wish you all a good day and be safe. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Viva GAR.
Thank you. We appreciate you all.
Thank you,
Thank
Tulia.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.